Hi, Bernard Kelly here. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to look at anxiety, and what I want you to do is just stay with me on this video right to the end. I'm going to just set out some tips and techniques for you that you can use in your life straight away. And regardless of whether anxiety is a minor or a major problem in your life, you're going to get some real value from this video. Now, one of the first things that I want you to have a look at here, imagine a line going out here. And here is the past. So the past is everything right up to this moment. Right here in the present is you watching me and me speaking with you. And out here on our right hand side we've got the future. And of course the future hasn't happened yet. But obviously the present slips into the future, etc., etc. Now, anxiety is one of those conditions whereby it's an emotion of the future. So by that I mean that we're not worried about the past. Now, we may be worried about something that happened in the past, but only about its consequences in the future. So unlike something like depression, etc., which can have its entire genesis or start in the past, anxiety typically is an emotion that's basically rooted in the future. But what it actually is, when I say rooted in the future, it's about events in the future which your mind basically projects you in a very difficult situation, not coping particularly well with what you're going to have to do. And therefore what it does is it interferes with the present. So whilst it's an emotion of the future, you experience the anxiety in the present moment. Okay. Now, the first thing that I want you to consider here, and just spend a few moments as I talk you through this, but actually after the video is over you may want to spend just a little bit more time on this, because this is actually quite a useful technique for you to consider. What I actually want you to find out for yourself is how you do anxiety. Now, that might be a strange way of putting it, or a strange term to use, but by that I mean that anxiety, you may feel that anxiety is happening inside me and I'm not doing this, and this is actually nothing to do with me and it's outside of my control. But let me assure you, you're the one doing the anxiety. Now, that's not to blame you or make the situation worse, but it's to point out the reality of actually what's going on. So when I say, how do you do anxiety? The first thing I want you to consider is, when you think of that situation in the future that causes the anxiety, do you have any internal pictures in your head? And if you have pictures in your head, are you looking out through your own eyes? Or is it almost like being in a movie theatre watching yourself in the anxiety movie, so to speak? Is the movie black and white? Is it in Technicolor? So what I want you to do is I want to just sharpen your awareness. So you've got internal pictures. And if you say, well, I can't do internal pictures, can you see the colour of your front door? Because if you can see the colour of your front door, you can do internal pictures. Okay, so it's not that difficult. The next thing I want you to have a look at is, are there any sounds associated with the movie or with the picture that you're actually looking at? So can you hear sounds? Because just notice the sounds. And the other thing is, I want you to also be aware of as well is there any self-talk going on? So what I want you to notice is that critique or that critical voice in your head, is that going on? Does that basically tell you that this situation is getting worse, that you'll never be able to cope with it? Just become aware of that. And also peculiarly, is there any taste or smell associated with the picture? And believe it or not, that's the entire way in which your thinking process is keeping the condition alive. Now, what all of those thoughts do, which are the visual ones, the pictures, the sounds, the self-talk, the taste and the smell if it's there, they're actually triggering your feelings, and they're triggering the feelings of anxiety. And those feelings of anxiety are creating beliefs that you're an anxious person and that you can't deal with the events of the future. Okay, I hope that's all clear so far. So what I'd like you to do now is play along with me for a moment, because what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this frame, it's a picture frame, and this may not be the most visually attractive representation you see, but I'm going to put the frame up here, and what's in the frame is all of those thoughts that we just spoke about, namely the visual, the auditory, the sounds, the internal self-talk, the taste, the smell, and all the feelings and the beliefs. And that basically is a mental frame. And you put that mental frame up there. It automatically goes up there. So you're here, the mental frame is here, and your life, or what you have to do on a day-to-day basis, is here. And if you're anxious, then everything is distorted by that mental frame. So you may be facing ordinary situations in your day-to-day world that have nothing got to do with the so-called event in the future, but you may just be anxious. You may feel the anxiousness inside you, you may actually have the sweaty palms, you may have accelerated heartbeat, and of course the anxiousness may appear to get worse depending on what stimulus you're presented with. Now, here's the interesting thing. The closer you bring that frame to yourself, the stronger the feelings become from that frame, to a certain point where you basically form your identity from that frame. So after a while, the stronger the thinking gets around the problem, the frame or the thinking becomes indivisible from you. In other words, there's no difference between you and your thoughts. They're one and the same. And once that happens, it's very, very difficult to deal with anxiety, or indeed any condition, because now your identity is part of those thoughts. So the first thing that I have to say to you is that all those thoughts here, the only reason they're there at all is because you continually think about them. And if the frame wasn't there with all those thoughts in it, anxiety wouldn't exist. So when I take this frame, and the further I move the frame back, now I've got perspective. And that's why I asked you to do that technique whereby I asked you, how do you do anxiety? Well, you basically do anxiety through all the ways that you think. But your mind doesn't make the distinction that we're making here and said, well, that's an illusion, so we won't think about it. Because your mind will work with any image that you give it. So, what would happen then if I asked you to do the following? Every day, at least twice a day, I want you to take time out, and this is extremely important for you to get results. And what I want you to do is, I want you to picture in your mind's eye, when you're in a relaxed situation, with your eyes closed, in a place that you won't be distracted, so it could be first thing in the morning or last thing at night, or any time during the day that you get an opportunity for a break. And what I want you to do is picture in your mind's eye all of the anxiety completely gone from your life. Now, this is not you wanting it to be gone, because we can want all we like. Wanting isn't enough here. What I want you to do is imagine, play a game of pretend in your mind, because that's what you're doing at the moment, or that's what your mind is doing at the moment for you. It's playing a game of pretend about the future that isn't even there. What I want you to do is, I want you to imagine that you're already completely and utterly stress-free and calm, and that anxiety no longer exists in your life, and that this has already happened for you. So sit down and wear what that would be like. In other words, picture it in your mind, notice what sounds you hear, notice what you're saying to yourself, and after a while your feelings will start to change. Now, believe it or not, this is exactly the same strategy that you're using to do the anxiety. The only difference is we have a different mental frame. Except this time with this frame, I want you to really bring it closer, because I want you to really wear this positive mental frame. Your mind won't make the difference between it will not say the anxiety one is real and this one is unreal. The only thing you've got to be careful about is to ensure that if thoughts jump into your head and say, this can't work, or I can't do this, dismiss them and go back to watching the positive picture as if it's already happened. Now you can, when you've got your eyes closed, you can actually imagine yourself in a movie theatre watching yourself on the screen, or else you could be looking out through your own eyes, experiencing it directly. It doesn't matter what way you do it. The only way that I want you to do is use exactly the sounds, the pictures, and that generates the feeling. Create positive self-talk inside you, and that will change your feelings, and ultimately that changes your belief. You need to do this for about 10 days, and what you're going to then create is a new neural pathway in your brain for calmness. And guess what? If you stop using the old neural pathway of anxiety, that wears away. Because the only reason that the anxiety pathway is activated and continues to be activated in your brain is because you keep thinking about it, you keep using it, you keep inadvertently going down that same track every day. So what I want you to do is, in the moment that they jump up, I want you to be fully engaged with what you're doing. So let's say you're driving to work and you're in the car and the negative thoughts, the thoughts of anxiety jump up. I want you to be aware that they're there, but instead of fighting with them, trying to get rid of them, questioning them, or listening to them as they try to get your attention and start waving at you, what instead I want you to do is, I want you to just focus all your attention on driving the car. Notice the sounds you hear, the feel of your body against the seats, your hands on the steering wheel, who you're talking to in the car. Engage fully in the present. And in that moment you will dissolve the thoughts of anxiety. And that, coupled with doing the technique twice a day of the visualization, will end anxiety so fast in your life you won't believe it. If you like this video, please subscribe to the link below, or just send me some feedback. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear how you're getting on, and I am going to continue to post a number of similar videos going forward on YouTube, so please look out for them. I wish you the very best of luck with this, but please let me know how you get on, and many thanks.